up and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, as the title reads, I am training for a sub 3:10 marathon in the fall. And the somewhat of a catch is I am currently 31 weeks pregnant. So we are 9 weeks out until the due date. It is exciting and terrifying all at the same time. The way that I'll be documenting this is I phased them out to 3 phases. Phase 1 is pregnancy, so we'll have 9 weeks left of phase 1, and then we'll move into phase 2, which is like a postpartum, kind of trying to ease back into fitness and what that looks like for me. And then phase 3 will be full on marathon prep mode. So if this sounds something that interests you, subscribe and follow along, and we're gonna dive into it. Today, as the title reads, we're gonna dive into how I'm cross-training to prepare for this marathon. So although I'm training for a sub 3:10 marathon, which is running, I'm currently using the bike to maintain my aerobic fitness along with weights. I'll be using that throughout the rest of my pregnancy, and then probably dabbling a little bit within it, just hybrid, just as I ease back into running. Before each session, I will consume some type of carbohydrates. It's usually in a bar form. This is the Go Bar by BPN. These have 36 grams of carbs in them, plenty for an hour session for me. And then I'll fill up a water bottle with electrolytes just to make sure that I'm staying hydrated and replenishing electrolytes throughout the training session. Today we have a 60-minute session on the bike on deck. So we're gonna head down and I'm gonna show you where I train, what I train on, and again, how cross training is going, how I've utilized it in the past, and how I think that it's gonna prepare me for this marathon in the fall. So let's get to it. All right, so this is the setup. It also doubles as my office where I do some programming for the All In Athletic Club, which you'll notice that's my flag there. It's looking kind of sad right now. I'll set you guys up so we can talk. All right, so I'm gonna set you guys up here, but this is my space. Most triathletes would call something like this the pain cave, but I must be a masochist because this is my happy place. This is where I can get away, just cruise, get a sweat in, and once I leave here, I'm feeling good. In the warmer months, my happy place is my garage gym, but today it is a high of 6 out, so I'm happy to be in here and grateful for this space. Now, before we hop on the bike, I wanna show you what I'm using. I am using the Concept 2 bike erg. So if you're not familiar with it, it differs from other traditional spin bikes in that there's no formal gauge of resistance. It works by a fan. So the fan is how it provides resistance to you. So the more power and output you're putting against that fan, the more resistance it's giving you. And you have a gauge here that allows you to scale up from a resistance of 1 all the way up to 10. Typically I'm between like a 4 and a 5. They call it a damper. And that's what usually gives me a pretty good stimulus that I can get the heart rate pumping, but still remain within my zone 2, which we'll dive into in a little bit. I'll show you guys the pedals. The pedals are not clip in. I don't know if you can see them here. They're not clip in, but they do allow you to get your foot in there so you can pull up and down, which is kind of cool. And then I have a slot up here that I'll typically just throw. There's a slot here where I'll throw my phone and watch some YouTube before hopping on. So that's the bike setup, and then the monitor from the bike connects to my Garmin watch, which you'll probably notice I'm actually wearing 2 watches. I have to get that figured out. Prior to using my bike as a cross trainer, I had switched over to Coros. This is the new Coros Pace Pro, which I really enjoyed. But when I ride the Concept 2, none of that data has the capability of being picked up on the Coros for me to see my speed, cadence, watts, and then distance that I'm putting out throughout a workout. And I'm a data nerd, and I wanted to have that. I already had this watch. This is the Garmin Epix Pro. I think it's like the 2nd generation. It's a great watch. I was just, as a runner, looking for something lighter, and I switched over to Coros, but I don't know, maybe it's Garmin's way of getting me back, but we're using both right now. We have to figure that out. And then I also utilize a heart rate monitor. This is the Coros armband. I have the Garmin strap as well, but the Garmin strap goes around your chest, which, if you think about it, if you're trying to gather heart rate data, if it's right over your heart, that's probably the most accurate data. But I have found accurate numbers through this arm strap, and it's a lot more comfortable, especially as a girl. It would rub up against my bra line, and I got some gnarly scars and just like burns from it just bouncing back and forth and rubbing against my bra. So for me, this has been a great solution, and we'll dive more into how I'm utilizing heart rate data for my training, but that's the gear that I'm using. That's the setup that I have to perform this cross training. So without further ado, grab my water, let's hop on the bike and get a 60-minute session in today. And we will talk about what my training looks like on a week-to-week basis and how it's gonna evolve and have it prepare me for a sub 310. So let's hop on and ride. All right, so I brought the mobile mic because this fan is so loud. So hopefully my voice can drown out the sound of this fan. But phase 1, cross training on the bike erg. You'll catch me here 5 to 6 days a week, and I'll do 60 minutes at a zone 2 heart rate. Some days I'll mix in a little bit of speed just to get the heart rate going, but for the most part, that's what it looks like. And then I have 3 days a week that I will incorporate some strength. And I'll split that into an upper, lower, and like full body, like functional fitness day. I'll probably make a separate video on strength alone because I feel like that is the foundation and what keeps your body strong and what keeps you injury-free throughout these preps and high volume training blocks, which we're not in, but we will be. So prepping that body, getting those muscles strong and prepared for, in my case, a little bit of atrophy and a lot of change. Going through the postpartum period will only help me in the long run. So, separate video on strength. But let's dive into how the bike trainer is going to keep me aerobically fit for running. Because in many ways, I believe that training within the zone 2 heart rate is the same. Your heart doesn't know the difference whether you're biking or whether you're running, because your heart is still doing the same thing. Now that being said, the muscles that you're recruiting to do those 2 types of activities are different. So the training stimulus for me when moving to the bike required a little bit of adjusting for me. There was an adjustment period where my legs just felt like they were getting smoked. Now I feel much more comfortable. It's recruiting different muscles than it does running. It's not a full body, high impact activity. So it's not as strenuous. So I can go longer, but it smokes my quad. So I had to get used to that. And when I transitioned back to running, there's muscles that I'm currently not recruiting as high a volume from or as high of impact from that I'll have to adjust to that as well. So while aerobically there's no difference, as far as muscularly, there will be. There's adjustments that your body's gonna have to make and gonna have to get used to. And depending how long you're away from whatever activity that you're trying to get back to, will most likely depend how long it's gonna take for your body to acclimate to getting back to it. I mentioned that I have previous experience with cross training. My last pregnancy, for 4 months out of the pregnancy, I biked instead of running. Post-pregnancy, I was able to come out, it was 14 weeks postpartum. I completed a half marathon and then achieved a Boston qualifying time 8 months postpartum. So it can be done. I have confidence in it, and this time around, I'm actually completing more volume than I did the prior time. So I have confidence that this method works. And I think the tough part for a lot of people is there's always that doubt in the back of your mind when you're put in a phase where you're cross training because of an injury, a setback or you're trying to avoid injury, there's always that little bit of doubt. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't transfer? I worked so hard to get to this point. Is it going to void all of the efforts that I put in? And I'm here to tell you, like, my past experience, like I said, I don't feel that it did. There are going to be adjustments you have to make. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to come back just ready to rock. But it's a hell of a lot better than sitting down and feeling sorry for myself and starting from square one late. So the reason that I started to use the bike was once my body was feeling the niggles of pregnancy, I was getting some side stitches, and just the added weight I knew was adding more stress to my frame. Running is a more strenuous impact activity than biking. So that being said, another key lesson is listening to your body. As athletes, I think a lot of us get used to feeling the pain and working through it. But I think we all know deep down the difference between uncomfortable growth and something that's actually going to be damaging pain. So it's really important. Listen to your body. You know deep down in the back of your head what's best for you. Those training sessions that are going to be hard, that you got to dig and they hurt, those are good. But there's others that, you know what, sometimes it's smart to back off. So it's kind of what I did. Was once I started feeling those side stitches, a niggle here or there, I just decided it's time to hop on the bike. So same timing really as last pregnancy. So it'll be probably 4 months total that I'll be on the bike, and utilizing Zone 2 to train. So I mentioned before hopping on here that I utilize a heart rate monitor in my training. So this is the Coros heart rate armband. You can grab it on Amazon. It's fairly priced. All of them are all around the same price, but like I said, it's most comfortable for me just because you stick it on your arm, you charge it minimally, and the accuracy is spot on. So if you're familiar with heart rate training zones, I aim for Zone 2, and I use the Maffetone method to calculate where my max Zone 2 should be. So the Maffetone method is you take the number 180, you subtract it, and then you get what your max heart rate should be to be in Zone 2 heart rate training. So I'm 33. If you take 180 and subtract 33, 147 is the highest that I should be at. Now, the analogy that I've learned basically throughout racing is that your heart is an engine. And when that engine overheats, it spikes, it gets out of control, it will send you into the infamous wall, which we all want to avoid. So utilizing Zone 2 training basically helps your body get used to a high volume of just low heart rate strokes, and it helps your body become very efficient at going longer for faster. And it took me so long to understand this concept that going slow, not overly taxing my heart rate, I can have a conversation with you while I'm doing this. It took me so long to truly believe that this would work. And once I went through a training block with a coach, it worked. And so I believe in it, and I will never go back. So if you haven't, use the Maffetone method to calculate what your Zone 2 is, and utilize it to attempt to just stay within that zone to your best. If it means slowing down, slow down. You gotta put your ego aside, and it goes back to just listening to your body. We gotta listen to our bodies to make sure that we don't overly tax at each session so that we can consistently show up and just stack that volume. So I'm gonna wrap up these 60 minutes here and catch you after. We will wrap up just kind of this training session, talk a little bit about like what I think mentally about cross training and good ways that I think to approach it, having gone through it and going through it now. And hopefully this can be like my second little experiment on how well it works. But like I said, my confidence is there knowing I've done it once before, so why not be able to do it again? So I'll catch you after this ride. So 60-minute session, average heart rate of 134. So that's what we wanted to stay in for that. That was the goal. And we'll break down just kind of my final thoughts here. All right. Some final thoughts on cross training after wrapping up that session. And I touched on this a little bit briefly as I was just talking to you riding, and that is just cross training. You're usually cross training because you're either injured or you're trying to prevent injury, which means that there's an element of feeling like you're missing out on what you're meant to be training for. So obviously I'm meant to be training for running, but right now I'm using the bike to cross train. And with that comes, I think, for anyone, I think naturally just a loss of sense of like control or a little bit of self-doubt. Like, is this going to be setting me up for success? Am I taking a major step back? And there's a lesson that I have slowly learned that I think is meant to be learned in all of this, and that it's really just control what you can control. And it applies to anything in life because we can't control what's happening. But what we can control is working with what we have and learning from it. So I've learned a ton throughout this experience. First off, I had to get comfortable on the bike again. Getting back on the bike, my butt hurt for like 2 weeks because I just wasn't used to being in the saddle. And then slowly but surely, I kept showing up and that went away. I got used to it. My quads were burning. I just felt that lactic buildup. And eventually it went away. But it took me controlling what I could control, which was showing up onto the bike and consistently showing up on the bike so that even though I sucked at it, I ended up getting better. If anything, I may come back a little bit behind from where I was at running, but mentally, there's something to be learned in that you can overcome adversity and the things that are thrown at you. And if you've ran it all or raced it all, you'll know that there are many things that can go sideways on a race day, on a training run, or on like a speed session where you're super nervous for it or you're trying to get ready for it and it just doesn't go your way. And if you can mentally be prepared to just deal with what's in front of you, take it on and just attack it, that I think is worth its value in gold. So if there's anything to be taken away is that we can't control things, but we can control our attitude and the way that we show up for it. So whether cross training is a choice or not a choice, there are lessons to be learned from it. And I think overall, if you stay consistent and keep showing up to it, you will come out better for it. So that's my cross training on the bike. I did mention my strength cross training because I think that's the foundation for all of this. And I think it deserves its own video. So that will most likely be the video that's coming next. So stay tuned in the next video for that one. And it was fun getting a training session with you guys. I think I spoke and then I looked at my clock and I had like 30 minutes left on my ride. So although you are behind the camera, it was nice kind of just chatting with you, and hopefully you will be back for the next one. I enjoyed it. That was cross training with me. Next video, like I said, we'll be diving into strength and what that looks like for me on a weekly basis. So hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.